Assalamu alaikum, Tunis. Last night, as I was saying goodbye to my parents, my mother asked me if I finished writing my speech. As she saw me struggling the past couple of days, so she was wondering and worried. I said, Alhamdulillah, I worked hard on it, and inshallah it will pay off. She smiled and said, Allah ya'tiki ala qad niyatik ya binti. This is an expression that is often used in my country. It is very common that it's so common that we tend to take it for granted, that we stopped comprehending what it means. What do we mean by intention or niyyah? Is it only an Islamic concept? Is it a concept that is referring to the intention that evokes in one's heart when we act or do something? Why are we requested to have our niyyah present in every single thing we do? When we eat, when we drink, when we pray 5 times a day, before we perform wudu or umrah or hajj? That got me wondering, and I always thought that why don't we just do it? Why think about it? And so the idea of intention and having it present and being aware of it actually struck me. And I started thinking, what was my niyyah when I started writing the speech? Well, it wasn't to write a perfect speech and get a great applause, although I would love one. It was actually to come and share my story. Well, not really my story, but my mistakes, my significant mistakes that led me to big time. So are you ready? Okay. I would like you to close your eyes and imagine this. A well-lit 3x4 office with a beautiful marble desk and a swivel leather chair. Imagine your name engraved in a metal plate that is sitting on top of this desk. Isn't this what we all are looking for, a well-established career? Well, to be honest, this was what I was looking for. This was what I wanted. I was a legal consultant sitting in this perfect office. My clients were usually from the creative industry. They would come to me with issues regarding their contracts or conflict resulting from these contracts. And I always came across one issue, that these creatives actually always sign contracts that is not in their best interest. They were not protecting themselves. And when I asked my clients, why did you sign this contract? You know what the answer is? Well, the answer is we didn't understand it and we didn't want to lose the opportunity. Interesting, isn't it? And so I started thinking of what can I do to prevent this from happening in the first place? The problem is these creatives have lack in business and legal knowledge, and it's very simple. I think I can solve the problem. They have the lack and I have the knowledge, so let me start giving workshops for these creatives on how to read their contracts. And so with a number of participants of 15 people, I started my workshop. And guess what? It failed miserably. Now, that failure made me wonder, what's wrong with these people? So I went to my friend and I was venting to her, and I was like, you know, this happened and all that. And she said, okay, I'll come and see what's going on. So we had the workshop, and after we finished, I was like, did you figure out what's their problem? And she looked at me and she said, the problem is not in them. The problem is in how you're presenting it to them. These boring, long, conventional lectures with complicated legal concepts is not comprehensible to them. You need to present it in a way they would comprehend it. And so I started thinking, what will I do? How can I make this more comprehensible? I changed the words into illustration and animations and visuals in order to attract them and make them understand these concepts. And you know what happened? It succeeded. And it was very beneficial for these designers. And one workshop led to the other. And with that success, I actually said, you know what? With my intention to help these creative, I want to do something that has bigger impact. So I started doing an extensive research about creative industries and creative economy, about social innovation and social change. And I stumbled on this amazing, amazing article that was talking about the Quran script, from the history of the Quran script from a social innovation perspective. It was saying that the tashkil, al-harakat, which is the diacritics in the Arabic language, was actually a solution our ancestors created in order to face or address the challenge they had when the Muslim world was spreading and many nations were coming and converting to Islam. They needed to unite the recitation of Quran and eliminate the margin of error in communication. And so they invented the tashkil, little signs, small designs that actually solved a huge social problem. This inspired me, and gears in my head started revolving and revolving. And I was like, you know what? I want to take my idea into practice. I quit my job and I started, and as a result, I came up with a socio-economic model that was inspired by the tashkil, where fatha, from opening, fataha, provides a series of workshops in order to build the capacity of people. And dhamma, when dhamma shay, represent gathering talents and creating a community of creatives online and offline in order for them to exchange knowledge and experience. And kasra, min kasara, breaking the obstacles that faces these designers while starting up their businesses through coaching, mentoring, and incubation, literally. And then I started thinking, so how about tanween? What would tanween be? Tanween is actually the integration, the dynamics, the nunation that gives the life. And that's the market. How can I integrate these designers into the market? Shadda was inspired by min shadda bi azrihi, which means extending one's hands in order to support, by creating a network of angel investors to invest in them. And med, min med, jusur, or extending bridges between the creative sector and the creative sectors and other sectors like the private sector and the local creative industries with international creative industries. Sukun, my favorite, from as-sakina wal-hudu. It's posing and reflecting and engaging our creatives into solving social issues. Just how Tashkil started. And so, with that in mind, I remember somebody once telling me, an idea without an execution is an illusion. And I was so determined to make my idea come to life. And so I flew to Lebanon because it's one of the most developed creative scenes in order to actually observe what's going on. I've noticed two things. One is that the big designers, the big names such as Elisab and so forth, were, let's say, big airplanes, and there are little designers who are as much talented, but they are in the startup phase, that are little airplanes. And I've noticed that the big airplanes were taking off, while the little airplanes were sitting there waiting for their turn. They were waiting for opportunities, they were waiting for funds. And so I started thinking, so what will I do now? How can I help these designers? And I got a great idea. I'm gonna create another runway, another platform for these designers to actually take off. And so, the minute I started creating the runway, these designers started lining up, and they started to take off. I sat happily in the air traffic control tower, directing them, having all the access I have in the Gulf. I was directing them to opportunities, exhibition, events, and so forth. And thinking closely, and I said, you know what? What I want to do is actually, I want to go back to my home country and start another runway. And so I went to Saudi Arabia, and I directly built another runway in order to help creatives in Saudi. The irony is once I built the airport, I sat again in the air traffic control tower, waiting, and so excited, I was excited waiting for these airplanes to take off. I waited and waited and waited and waited, and none of the airplanes took off. And I was like, oh my God, they're lined up there. Why aren't they taking off? And so I went down to see what was the problem, and to my surprise, I did another huge mistake. I've built a runway in the middle of the desert. I've built a runway with no airport to support it. I've placed this platform with no infrastructure that will help it achieve its mission. And on the other hand, these little airplanes could not take off because they were incomplete. They were not equipped. Realizing that mistake made me feel devastated, and I went back to questioning, what is my intention? Shall I go back to Lebanon where my business model was successful, or shall I stay here and make it happen? Thinking about it, I started questioning, as I said, my intention, and my intention was to help these people. And so I decided to stay. And I realized that sometimes you make mistakes that are worth, and not just worth, they're meant to happen. You make these mistakes, and it actually is so essential in your development, in your personal development, in your career development. But these mistakes actually test your intentions. It tests what you stand for. And with that in mind, I stayed addressing the challenges. Some of the challenges were actually related to the designers. They weren't equipped, as I said, so they needed a lot of workshops, and so I started doing all the workshops. Other challenges were related to the environment. That's the problem. So the ones that are related to the environment were actually, how can we change the mindsets of people? How can we change the negative perception people have against creative careers? So, for example, a story, there was this male fashion designer that we worked with for 6 months. His mother came to visit me and said, "Can you please stop encouraging my son to continue as a tailor?" And I was like, okay. And I was like, "What do you want him to be?" She's like, "I want him to be a banker. How can I go and with him to propose to any bride and say he's a tailor?" And I was like, "Ya Allah, you know, that got me thinking, what can I do to actually change the perception amongst these people?" Because if his mother will not accept him being a fashion designer, then he's not going to be a fashion designer. And so the third challenge was mainly about resources. So the designers did not have resources to rent offices. And so we started the first co-working space Kayan space, in order to help these designers find affordable offices. The fourth one, which was very significant, is the demand. There was no demands on their goods. All the Saudi people wanted to buy brands. They believe it's more prestigious. So what can we do to change that? What we did is we created very entertaining events, just like TEDx, but it's actually retail events. Pop-up stores and bazaars and exhibitions in order to attract them only. We just got their feet inside. And then we started working on changing their perception. And with all these activities, I was labeled to be all over the place, not focused. How the hell is she going to succeed? Well, with all these activities, on the other hand, we grew a huge database and network. Our sales increased 160% on local and regional designers' items from the first first exhibition we had in 2011. And a lot of other people started copying us. Many pop-up stores and bazaars started happening, interested in local designers. And that shows that people are started to be willing to invest in these people. And fourth, we got some attention from the media. We started being cool and hip, and we're all over the Saudi media. And this made a lot of people want to come and help us. Having that in mind and realizing that, I've realized that my social economic model was actually happening. And my intention was the compass that was navigating my actions. And now what? Well, now we should build the airport. How can we build the airport? We need public sector and private sector, and these people will never act if we don't have data. And so in 2014, we partnered and we joint ventured with International Association in order to create the Saudi National Creative Initiative. The Saudi National Creative Initiative's aims to research and develop and map the creative scene in Saudi Arabia. It is a tool for the 2005 Convention of the UNESCO of Creative Industry. It was also inspired by the 2030 Saudi National Strategic Vision to transfer Saudi Arabia into a knowledge economy. Everybody is going to say, "Are you going to give up on the oil?" Yes, because now we're giving up on the oil and we're investing in our people. And so, with the Saudi National Creative Initiative, we have 3 goals. The first one is to locate every single creative all across Saudi Arabia through creating an online platform where they can register so we can list them in one big directory. 2, we want to communicate with these creatives in order to understand their challenges and further create tailor-made programs to help them. But not only that, we want to document the scene today, write and publish the first Saudi national report about creative industries. And fourth is to create. Why do we want to create? We want to create the first portal where we give these creative access to opportunities and access to knowledge. The Saudi National Creative Initiative made me realize that I, as an insignificant individual, was able to come up with something that will implement my country's vision. And so today, when they ask me, what does Tashkil do? I simply say, we design the future. And I think I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sofana Dahlan, and I do mistakes that pays off. Thank you.